up, everybody? I'm going to jump right in today. I'm going to talk about some of the top mistakes that I've made as a real estate investing, operator. As a real estate investment operator, I've partnered and I've worked for a number of investors throughout the years. And today I'm going to talk about the 4 top mistakes that I've made throughout that process so that maybe you can learn from them and avoid some pitfalls. All right. So, and these aren't in any particular order. They just kind of came to mind a few days ago and I jotted them down on my notes here. So if you're tuned in, you might want to get a notepad or get some kind of pad and take notes as well. So first on the list, again, these are in no particular order. It was really heavy on my heart. One thing that I went through and I noticed or have noticed with a lot of real estate practitioners and operators is not getting paid fairly or appropriately for your time and basically to operate the business. I was telling my pops earlier, there's a lot of misunderstandings and there's a lot of misconceptions about what it means to really own real estate investments and to work through a renovation project and to leverage different types of capital, whether it's a hard money loan or your own capital. You got private equity from a business partner, and then you may even have to source additional capital. But as you go through that process, if you are on the ground and you are helping to maybe source a deal, to oversee a renovation, and then from there, especially if you're building a portfolio, or even if you're just fixing, flipping, or reselling, I believe that the operator, whoever is on site, I believe that there needs to be at least one owner who is an operator, who is on the ground helping to oversee things. They don't have to do all of the property management themselves. They don't have to be the general contractor and get their hands dirty if they don't want to, right? They don't have to do all of the stuff, but there needs to be some oversight and some guidance. And for that, being compensated, because the time and the energy that goes into the real estate investing process really gets slept on, okay? Part of me putting the word out here on YouTube, on my YouTube channel and on social media, doing live streams and so forth, is to uncover some truths or dispel some myths to help people really get a better understanding of what it means to own real estate and to place capital, invest in real estate. And so this is a huge part. It's just something that I have had to transition and switch gears on throughout the years so that I don't get exhausted and so that I don't get burnt out, and so that we can continue to operate and sustain or grow the real estate investing business. So that first one, get yourself paid fairly, appropriately, however you can structure it, whether it's up front, okay, during the renovation project, if there is one, if you're coordinating with contractors or property managers, and then perhaps definitely on the back end as well. But along the way, that's a key part. Hopefully up front and along the way, because on the back end, the goal is to have some profits, but the reality is for a lot of fix and flipper, there are no profits, okay? But you got to work it out some way, right? So hopefully, again, I don't want to beat that one to death. Getting yourself paid as an operator or an investing partner is huge. Okay, number 2 on the list, all right? Assuming the capital that's being used can be invested for the long run. Okay, so I mentioned different types of funding and financing on previous videos, of course. Okay, so when you are investing your own money, right? Or you bring in an investment partner or a capital investor and you're using their money along with yours, or maybe just yours, or maybe just theirs, and you're leveraging that money with some type of funding or financing. It's usually a first lien position loan of some sort. That money is considered private capital or private equity. It's either private equity or private capital. It's the gap funds, it's the reserves, it's the capital that's going to be needed for down payments, for renovation overages, perhaps closing costs, and then operational business expenditures and so forth. A huge mistake that I made, not just with business partners multiple times over, but also with clients, is assuming that the money that they put up can be invested and can remain invested. Okay, so if some of y'all are tuned in on my social media, I have mentioned over the last month or so, probably longer than that, how I have been more intentional about vetting investors, vetting clients, vetting partners. Okay, so you gotta really use some intuition and some discernment and to ask the right questions. Okay, and you'll be able to pick up the vibe by whoever you're communicating with in their response. I know it's easy to get carried away. A lot of us want to do deals just for the sake of doing deals, because we want that experience, because the people in our networking group are doing deals. And a lot of times, our pride and our ego gets in the way, and we're not necessarily thinking ahead. Okay, so if the money that's being invested, that's being leveraged, is coming from a certain source, it'll behoove you. It's important if you can find this out. If you can't find this out, then you might not want to go work with that investor. Or if you don't know where that money's coming from, there's a good chance that it may need to be paid back within 6 to 12 months, or maybe 12 months to 24 months. So the mistake I made, and I see a lot of investors doing it, is we assume that however we're sourcing our capital, that money can be invested for the long run. Okay, so again, most of what I encourage and talk about, most of what I've done throughout the years as an operator, former property manager, project manager, and so forth, is working with investors who want to create equity and cash flow and more revenue and potentially increase their net worth through real estate investment portfolios that are being grown or built or sustained for the long run. Okay, for the long run in real estate. Okay, so let's put that in perspective too, because for a lot of people, a long period of time could be a year or 2 or 3 years. But when you think about it, in real estate, that's a very short time, especially when you think about a lot of the mortgages that are being used to purchase real estate. There's a reason that it's 30 years long. Okay, so that's part 2. Number 2, we cannot assume that the money that's being invested, that you access, can be invested and can remain invested for at least, look, I'm shooting 10 years out. At least maybe 3 to 5, 5 to 7, especially today. By the way, it's Wednesday, October 8th, 2025. We're already in fourth quarter. With everything going on globally, politically, socially, economically, unofficially, maybe we're in a recession here in the US, and allegedly, maybe we've been in a recession for the last couple of years. If you're not planning for the long run, the odds of you succeeding are being diminished. Okay, so number 3. All right, number 3 mistake that I have made as an investor, an investment operator, okay? And it kind of ties in with number 2, using short-term funds for long-term investments. And again, all this ties in together. We're running, we're finding deals, we're sourcing capital, we're rehabbing properties, we're using hard money loans, and we're using short-term debt. We want to just get in and get the experience, but we sometimes gotta slow down, take a deep breath, and ask certain questions, okay? Because the fact of the matter, right now, again, fourth quarter 2025, a lot of investors are stuck, okay? Because we didn't follow these procedures, and we didn't think about the long run, okay? Number 3, using short-term funds for long-term investments. Again, if you want to grow a portfolio, if you want to create cash flow, if you want to create wealth, it's not going to happen by wholesaling or fix and flipping. It just is what it is. That'll get you rich, but there's a difference between rich and being wealthy. There's a difference between making a lot of money and increasing your net worth. There's a difference between net cash flow and gross revenue. These are things that you got to think about and things that I've learned the hard way throughout the years. Okay, so if you're going to grow a portfolio, there is a quote. I can't think of the gentleman's name, but I posted it on my Facebook maybe 2 years ago. It'll come to me and I'll probably post it somewhere, or maybe I'll mention it on my next video. But the quote is, the key to good long-term investments is good long-term financing. All right, so if you're looking to grow a portfolio, to create cash flow, increase your net worth or whatever, you're gonna need to use more long-term funds, okay? Number 4, all right? And this is the last one. Don't wanna go too long today. Appreciate you tuning in and taking notes and bearing with me. Definitely check me out. I'm gonna continue dropping game, okay? For real estate practitioners, investors, capital people who want to really do well and place capital strategically and effectively, all right? Hopefully for the long run. I understand sometimes you gotta do short-term stuff, but if you're gonna do that, like there's other ways to do that. But again, focusing on the long term, growing portfolios, growing cash flow, investor financing, seller financing, is our jam. That's a great way to do it, all right? Number 4 mistake that I've made, when I'm working with a partner or a client, okay, if there's a misalignment of values, okay, and this is a tough one. Again, like if you're not as experienced and you haven't talked to hundreds of investors and you haven't walked thousands of properties and you haven't started 13 businesses and rehab 80 properties and done whatever else, right? It's gonna take time to kind of sort through this. Again, because you're hungry, you want the experience, but I'm just imploring you and encouraging you to think about these things before you go into business, before you sign on the dotted line, okay? Especially if you're going long term. If there's not an alignment, if there's a misalignment of values, then things are not gonna work out so well. You may be able to get away with some stuff here and there, but I on here as part of number 4, sticking around too long, okay, pouring into a venture or a client or a partner, okay, part of the misalignment is a lot of it is very subtle or it's subconscious, all right? Investors, people see opportunities and they want to, do a deal and they want to gain experience again, but vetting your people is critical. They gotta believe in you, okay? And then they gotta believe in what you're doing. So your strategy, okay, your investment model, right? If I fired a client, I think it was almost 2 years ago because of this. And I'm thankful that I did. And I paid part of her money back that she paid me up front because there was not an alignment of values, okay? And this happens, this is just one example. I've been through similar things before, but my investor or my partner, right, my client wants things done a certain way, and I tried to explain to them, and it didn't seem to matter if I grew up in the business and I watched my parents doing this for 30 plus years, and it didn't seem to matter that I had helped over 100 investors, and it didn't seem to matter my experience. They wanted to do things a certain way, and it didn't align with what I believed was going to be a successful thing to do. And those old partners, those old clients, or whoever it is, they got to deal with it. They got to figure it out now. So that's number 4. Again, I appreciate you tuning in. It's Luther Wilson III. You see the company name there. We're here in the Kansas City market. most of what I do is serving investors, okay? Helping them to understand, at this point, right? I'm more of a real estate advisor, helping investors sort through a seller finance transaction, okay? Helping investors do asset management and figure out how they can grow their portfolio or work through a challenging situation, okay? And then for those capital investors, right, who want to be able to invest their capital, their hard-earned money, or their family's money, or however they got their money, that's where, you know, at the end of the day, that's what the real estate investing is all about, okay? So the quicker we realize, like, all right, we're gonna need capital. At this point, like, if you think you could do real estate with no money, like, okay, cool, that's partially true, but you're gonna need someone's money, all right? And there's a good chance that you're gonna have to leverage someone else's money with some type of debt, meaning some type of short-term debt, right? And then if you're gonna grow the portfolio, that means that you're gonna need to eventually get out of the short-term debt, which means that you're gonna have to resell or refinance. And that refinance is the long-term debt. So strategically leveraging, placing other people's capital, growing your cash flow, whether it's from a seller finance, you got a portfolio of notes, okay? I still believe in rentals. Single family is my jam. Multifamily seems to work, it can work very well, okay? And then private lending is a huge opportunity there for investors with capital investors, money players, whoever. Before you decide to get into a house flipping business, or before you decide to, you know, take on a project or grow your own portfolio, you need to consider partnering or working with an operator, or just simply being a private money lender, or perhaps a private equity investor. That way you can do it more passively, and you can enjoy your life and run your business, enjoy your family if you're still working, doing that sort of thing. All right, so that's it for today. Appreciate you tuning in, and feel free to reach out. All right, peace, y'all.